Hello guys, welcome back. In the last video, we talked about deployment, and in that deployment, we talked about system requirements. And now let's move on to the second topic, pre-installation steps. So in the pre-installation steps, we have these certain activities that we need to perform. The starting being creating a repository, a mirror repository. So if you are performing your deployment on SAS Susi Linux environment, a mirror repository is required and mandatory. But if you're doing it on Red Hat Linux or Windows machine, etc., this option is this mirror repository option is optional. Yeah, for other platforms, it's optional. So in order for us to do the mirror repository, let's go there. So a mirror repository is required for all SAS Viya deployments on Susi Linux that we discussed. And in order for us to do the SAS Viya platform mirror repository, a SAS Mirror Manager, which is a command line utility, is used for synchronizing a collection of software repositories from SAS. So its primary purpose is to manage mirror repositories for software deployment. Mirror repositories are useful if your deployment does not have access to the internet, right? Or if you must always deploy the same version of software, these mirror repositories are used. And this mirror manager can be downloaded along with your software order, and then it will help you to create the repository. So this mirror manager can also create the repository in a specified location, such as maybe you want to put this in a shared NFS mount point or a web server, that has files on the HTTP, and if you have some default location for the files, that SAS Mirror Manager will download and use it for the installation purposes. So always you have to make sure that default location or another location that you select has adequate space, so that while you're doing the mirror repository, it won't run out with errors because of space issues, right? So as you can see, the below minimum the image minimum disk space required for mirror repository, and if you're doing it on any platform, all the platforms, it is 159 GB. But if you take platform specific, Linux on power only, which is 54 GB, and then the command options are also mentioned. Red Hat is 89 GB. Windows it's only 38 GB. So how are we doing this using the mirror manager is, as I mentioned here, you will download the mirror manager along with your software order. You will receive an email from SAS Institute, which subject contains software order email, which indicates that you should have SAS Viya deployment data zip file, and you have to save that. And based on that, you will be directed to SAS Mirror Manager download website, and there you will download the SAS Mirror Manager. And once it is downloaded to your machine, you can use that to create your repository, right? If your environment requires a proxy server that is set up to use it, then the mirror manager command will work automatically using the proxy server. However, if your environment is not set up to send data through a proxy, you have to add that environment variable to the command line and run the SAS Mirror Manager, which will help you to connect to that proxy server and create the mirror, right? So let's move on to deployment scripts. So in order for us to deploy, you first have to have the SAS orchestration command line interface, which is called CLI. This is used for retrieving the information from the orders that you have placed with the SAS Institute, which is like the email that I mentioned earlier, right? So, software order email, and it will create a deployment script for your SAS via software. So this SAS orchestration CLI can be run on Linux or Windows, and it requires Java runtime environment, as we saw in the hardware requirements, and it also requires internet connection, right? Obviously, where unless if you don't have that. Uh, 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 Unless if you are only deploying using a mirror repository, as mirror repository doesn't require an internet connection. Um, so you will first download the SAS orchestration CLI. The email that you received will contain the attachment, and you will use that attachment to go to that website, SAS orchestration CLI download website, and you will download the file for the operating system that you are installing. If it is Windows, you will choose Windows option, and you will download that zip file, unzip it on your Windows machine, and follow the instructions to install the orchestration CLI. Then once the SAS orchestration CLI is downloaded and unzipped or uncompressed, then you will create the deployment scripts with the SAS orchestration CLI. So there are two options. One is basic command, and then options and other options. Like first, if you have to do it with basic commands, you will first create the deployment script using the commands that is appropriate for operating system. If you're using, as I said, Windows, you will either use run command or command prompt, and you will go to the location where you have stored this SAS or orchestration.exe file. You will select that file, and you will use a command called build input location file, so that um, your CLI will create a zip file with the name of SAS via deployment script. And other options include like if you're using a proxy server or a different deployment type, or using a mirror repository, you will choose appropriate options to create the deployment scripts. And once the deployment is created, you will have to store the deployment scripts. So as a best practice, create a deposit directory where you can store the files that are used to deploy and maintain your software, right? SAS recommends using in a drive, C drive or D drive, whatever you choose, but it recommends to use C drive SAS install, and you don't have to replace or remove this once your installation is over. So save these deployments to your hard drive, and once the zip file is downloaded to this SAS install location, you will unzip or uncompress it. Then you move on to the deployment scripts and security. The deployment scripts that are created using the SAS orchestration CLI are PowerShell scripts, right? The PowerShell scripts are not digitally signed because they are created at a deployment time based on your software order. And the options that you set when you run the SAS orchestration CLI. So if your organization requires that PowerShell scripts are digitally signed, you must get that signed with your security or infrastructure team to get that signed. Okay, then let me move on to the next step, which is the ports that are required for doing this as via deployment, and you have to ensure all these ports that I am showing here are available for you to begin the deployment of your SAS Viya software. So as you can see, you need to have Apache HTTP server 80 or 443. If it is internally used, you'll use 80. If it is an external party externally facing, then 443. Then Erlang port mapping daemon 4369 and other SAS infrastructure data server, SAS common planning, cache servers, message broker studio, configuration server, object caller. So all of them have to be made available before starting the deployment. So you also have to make sure that in order to secure the web access to your SAS Viya software, only port 443 HTTPS should be open externally on the machine where SAS Viya is deployed, and port 80 should be locked externally after the deployment process has completed. Right. Um, and make sure all these ports that are available are not in a freeze mode or not available for you to do the deployment. Moving on, once you have the repositories, deployment scripts, ports available, you will then use the tuning option to tune your Windows system, where first thing is you are going to update the Windows registry. So Microsoft always recommends performing a system backup before doing this Windows registry to ensure there is no loss of data or a corruption in the Windows system. So you will open the Windows registry either by using regedit or registry options. Then the registry editor will open. You will go to the parameters for the D word, and you will change the um, uh, following D word values accordingly as per the recommendations given by SAS Institute. Right. Once these updates are made, you will update. You'll click on OK, and you will close the registry editor. So it's always recommended that you restart the Windows machine to enable these values to the full machine. Then if your organization requires you to perform additional tuning sessions, SAS also provides you those information and directions to perform those and your organization. So please follow those deployment scripts or pre-deployment document to enable these additional tuning sessions. So, and finally, in the pre-installation task, if you have a SAS event stream processing um, product or a component available in your software, you will also enable or set this environment variable for your deployment. And this environment variable differs from environment to environment. So make sure you are doing this according to the deployment registry file that SAS has shared, and update the variables accordingly, and click OK and save. Again, SAS recommends to perform a restart to ensure these variables are set at the Windows level. This completes the pre-installation task, and let me move on to installing SAS Viya platform. Right. So when we move to installation, there are certain tasks that we need to perform or we need to verify. I'm sorry, this option has come up here. Let me quickly update. Okay, you can ignore this set one. This is already discussed. So I'll want to specify credentials for your gas user account. Okay, just give me 1 second. Okay, in the meantime, I've updated the titles. So first, what we do when we are starting the installation is specifying the credentials for CAS user account. So what we are doing for is this using the deployment scripts, we will save the credentials for the SAS CAS user accounts that we have created previously. So in the user accounts section, I've talked about creating these accounts. So we'll create this account and make sure the name of the user account is always CAS, CAS, which is recommended by SAS, and ensure to use this account while doing the installations. Then moving on to the next one, specify credentials for Postgres user account. Again, using the deployment scripts, use this save these credentials for the Postgres user account, and this user will enable the SAS infrastructure data service, which runs on PostgreSQL. So we need to make sure this account is um, available and created or specified before the installations. Then, while doing the installations, it is also recommended to modify the deployment variables. The configuration settings for your deployments are contained in the VARS file, VARS psdcon file. So ensure this file is always updated, and this file is always located in the installation location. So first we'll do the modification of PostgreSQL setting. SAS Viya uses PostgreSQL as the SAS infrastructure data server, and if you're doing the installations on Windows machine, the PostgreSQL deployment consists of one data node. So you can always modify the settings in the deployment where VARS PDF file is located, PSD1 file is located. Then we will change the CAS server monitor port number, whereas the port number we will change it to port number 8777. Once the port number has been changed, we'll move to the pre-deployment validation disabling, because we don't want to do this as part of deployment itself. We will do it separately. So we will pause this option in the settings for verify deployment variable, and then pause it. From the variable is always set to true, so we will change it to false to ensure this pre-deployment validation is not done or completed during the installation itself. And then we'll also change the CAS server port number from 5570 and to a new port. If you think that the new port your organization is changing any port number. If not, that will remain same. Then similarly, we will also update the Kerberos settings by adding the CAS port number, Kerberos KDC option, meaning your LDAP information, and then your realm information in the file, and then save it. Once the Kerberos settings are modified, you will move to the CAS data directory setup. And by default, the product CAS slips are written to the program data of C drive, which is often hosted on a single hard disk drive with limited storage. So to ensure proper performance of your SAS solutions, SAS recommends that the CAS data DAR option to configure to a point where we are required to do high performance storage platform. So, for example, if a high performance storage platform is required, we will include SAN and VMEs and multiple disk drive arrays. which will enable us to use them, and they must be owned by the cache user. So we'll update the settings accordingly and save the file. Then once these are completed, we will move to the post deployment configuration, where after the software has been deployed, you cannot make any changes to the configuration. So we will use this option to update any configurations that we need to do and change the vars.psd1 file to move towards the installation. And one final step before doing the installation is installing the SAS signing certificates. So at all the PowerShell scripts that SAS has given to you are as we discussed earlier, they are not digitally signed. So we have to make them signed using the SAS signing certificate functionality. So how we are going to do that is we will execute the below command using the administrator options like set util add store trust publisher /SAS_code_ signing certificate .p7b. So this option will enable us to become a SAS signed certificates. And finally, we will move towards installing the SAS via platform. So again, how are we going to do that is we will go to the installation location directory where you have the uncompressed SAS via deployment script zip file that you created earlier. You will locate a setup.bat file, and you will right click and run as administrator from the menu, or you can also choose a command prompt, and command prompt should be opened as run as administrator, and we will give certain options like setup.bat and install config or whatever the option that we are choosing. So first, it is recommended that you install the SAS via platform using setup.bat space -install, which will install the software on your local machine and completes the installation. You have to follow the screen options, and you click on next to complete the installation. Once the installation is over, you can use setup.bat space -config to start doing the configuration of your software. So whatever the products that you have installed earlier, you are now going to configure them and then also start the services. So once the installation and configuration are over, to conserve space, you have to run the setup.bat script again and complete the deployment. You can also delete the MSI files that are located in the downloaded directory, which will enable us to save some space on the local machine. If at any point in time, if the deployment process fails and you're able to see the error, make sure you are restarting the deployment using the appropriate commands to ensure you're doing the installation configuration properly. And at any point in time, if the SAS options are showing you to reboot the deployment process, make sure you reboot the process and start the configuration using the same deployment commands. So this completes the installation as well. Let me pause in this video, and we'll go to the next video for the remaining post-installation tasks.